and we also hear you clearly in terms of how you shared with us some of the areas we have advantages, as a Nigerian economy and the business, manufacturing, agriculture, services, and entertainment. And it is good that we do take care of this. And it's interesting, despite COVID and all the challenges that it has brought around, that in terms of AFCA, that it might actually be a blessing in disguise. Our businesses may not need to set up brick and mortar shops in other countries in order for them to trade with the African partners. So let's see how that works out. And I think as we go into our question and answer, some of those policy imperatives that you mentioned are very key and they are food for thought. It's not just about ticking a checkbox. So the question is, how soon and how well can we address those policy objectives and imperatives for us to be able to bring the whole of Africa together? And I just take note of some of three major ones: harmonizing the tariff rules and trade policies across these regions, identifying what is a competitive, a comparative advantage, and the need for tax treaties. So these are very good ones, and I'm sure the questions that we have, they are brimming. I have some private questions that be sent directly to me, and I know there are some on the chat box. So at this point, we would like to proceed to the question and answer session, where we'll be asking both Mr. Oruche and Mr. Oyedele to help us to answer some of the questions. So I will start with Mr. Oruche, and the first question will be on AFTA, that will AFTA make it easy for Nigerian manufacturers to set up factories abroad? And is this really a good idea? I know you are touching base on it, but our participants want more perspective on that. Over to you, Mr. Oruche. Hello, Mr. Oruche. Are you with us?
Take that question. Yes, the intention of AFTA is that you can set up a factory at anywhere, having Africa as your market, the entire Africa continent as your market. But looking at the population of Nigeria,
hello, you seem to have disappeared. Your audio.
Hello? Oh, my
yes, I think your
audio is on. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hello?
We can hear you. Please, you may proceed.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think the intention of the founding fathers of AFTA is that Africa becomes one continent, one nation, where you can set up a business in any part of the Africa for the entire African continent. Now, if we allow that to happen for Nigeria businesses located to Lome, located to Ghana, located to Rwanda, for Nigeria market, will create a huge unemployment crisis. And that's why we have been hammering to government a banana republic where no law operates, because a hungry man is an angry man. Somebody that is not doing anything, it becomes a devil workshop. So that's what will ensure that it never happens. Instead, we'll create a level environment for industries to come and set up in Nigeria to be able to take advantage of the entire African market. I think that will be our focus and our target, not allowing our industries to locate to other economy to take advantage of efficient infrastructure that we don't have. So that's why we're asking government, create a enabling environment, ensure that the environment is conducive enough for businesses to set up here, to take advantage of the population here and the entire African continent.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So it's all about, we should have inflow of businesses into the Nigerian economy, not the exporting of our businesses elsewhere. We need to create employment opportunities for our people. Thank you. So we move on to the next question, Mr. Oyedele. And this goes, what steps can Nigerian manufacturers begin to take to make the most of the provisions of AFTA?
Yeah, good question. I think I'll address that and then I'll make a brief comment on the question that Mr. Uruche just addressed. So I think on one hand, Nigeria manufacturers have to, in my view, I don't know whether they have already, they need a think tank to just focus on outcome. If we leave everything to government, the progress will be slow. So we need to take it seriously and start thinking. My view is that first and foremost, we should not set out to want to manufacture everything because it's not realistic. Not even the US is manufacturing everything. We'll say, given the challenges we have, at least in the short to medium term, what is it that we can manufacture and at least compete? Maybe not better. If there might be a few things we can manufacture better. Are there things we can do now and do well and be able to compete with the rest of Africa? We should identify those areas and make them a matter of priority. So if you think about and this is just based on my experience traveling across Africa, just think apart from the entertainment that I spoke about before, which may not be manufacturing. Think about textile, right? Whether the textile is made in Nigeria or not, when you finish the final product, Africans can't wait to buy them, right? And I don't see anybody who can do it better than us in Nigeria. So whatever it is that we want to identify now that we can do, we should do it and do it well. You don't have to manufacture, and I'm not discouraging anyone, just an example. You don't need to manufacture a whole car. If you can do well by just manufacturing tires for the rest of Africa or the rest of the world, or maybe your area of specialty is just to produce the engine. Because the fact that, to the point I wanted to make a few comments about, so the fact is, because of the mere fact that we don't have electricity supply alone, is a big disadvantage for us in Nigeria compared to even the rest of Africa for some other countries where power is more stable. So what we need to do is, as we're thinking about manufacturing, let's not forget the other areas where the lack of infrastructure is less of an issue. For example, can we be deliberate in terms of our policy to make Nigeria a shared service center for Africa? Can we make it a headquarter location? So even if they are not manufacturing everything in Nigeria, can they have all the senior people sitting down in Nigeria in the headquarter location, making decisions about their investment in Africa? And just imagine what amount of value that will bring. Can we be the center for research and development? Can we be the center for innovation in Africa? Let's have the African Silicon Valley in Yaba, or have it somewhere, within Nigeria. Those areas, we will be able to make quick and faster progress while we work on the medium to long-term solution to manufacturing, and it has to be very deliberate and specific in terms of what we need to do. And I think it should be done in partnership with the manufacturers as well as government.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's very imperative about us focusing on where we have the areas of competence, and we shared a number of areas with us. Maybe it would be nice to get some thought from Mr. Uruche as well in terms of where, because I have a question, and that's why I'm taking my next question, because it goes about what gives Nigeria competitive advantage. And you've actually set the tone, Mr. Oyedele, in the comment you are giving. So maybe it's nice to get Mr. Uruche to also give us some thoughts on what he thinks, gives us competitive advantage, in the manufacturing sector that we can focus our energies on. Mr. Uruche?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me? Hello,
yes,
can you hear me? Okay, I quite agree with him on the aspect of competitive and comparative advantage. But the issue is we have to look at our population, and I think that's what government over the years has come up with import substitution mechanism, where most of the things we use, we try to produce them here, bringing raw materials from every part of the world and then make it here so that we can create jobs. Creating jobs is the deliberate policy. If China can talk about full employment level by ensuring that the manufacturing sector are the best, I think we can also talk about a deliberate policy to create jobs, because having this army of unemployed people is dangerous for our country. So we need to be deliberate about it. Yes, there are needs for us to look at the products we have competitive and competitive advantage, like agricultural products, and then process. I agree basically with that, but there's also need for us to look at how can we design a delivery policy to be able to create employment for the teeming Nigerian youth. And that's where comes in import substitution mechanism.
Okay, thank you very much for those further questions, for those further perspectives on that question. So let me ask the next question. I'll call on Mr. Oyedele. What will become of non-tariff charges, levies, incentives, waivers, and exemptions currently operational in Nigeria, given the advent of ATFA? Do they disappear? How do we harmonize? What becomes of them? Maybe you can share some thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. I think I will still categorize all the levies and charges and import duties as part of tariff barriers, to the extent that they are discriminatory. If what you ask people who come from the rest of Africa to pay is also what we pay in Nigeria, then that's fine. And the treaty is not saying you should stop charging people taxes and levies. But if you have a levy that is specific to foreigners, then you can no longer apply it to Africans. You can apply it to people who come from outside Africa. So I think that tariff barriers will not be the biggest issues for us to deal with. One, because it's not like we make a lot of money from those things now anyways. And if we reform it well, it can actually translate to a benefit even for government. We think that our estimate is that the potential revenue loss to government is very insignificant from AFCA. So which means the biggest issue that we have to deal with is non-tariff barriers. Now, those non-tariff barriers range from the fact that you have a local content regulation that says only a Nigerian can do this, or this is the maximum number of foreigners that can come. So for those definitions, someone coming from Ghana will not be qualified as a foreigner anymore because Africa is now one market, at least in principle. Those would include issues around exchange rate policies. So should you continue with having 4 rates? Do you want to unify your rates? Those also issues, include just closing the border. Should you close the border for whatever reasons? So the list is long of those non-tariff barriers. We need to first identify them. We need to find a way to address them. It does not mean we should remove all of them overnight. We need to protect our own economy as well. So that's why you need a work plan, to say, what's your blueprint? Should we remove this now? Should it be in 2 years' time, and why? So once we do that, we monitor the progress we are making. We can always refine those plans, but we should not be stampeded by Africa or by African Continental Free Trade Area into doing anything that would be negative to our economy. I think we are big enough to drive the conversation and be the one actually leading the whole thing for the interest of Nigeria first and foremost, and then for the interest of Africa.
For that clarity you've shared on the non-tariff barriers, we should address them, and we should see about ultimately eliminating them over a phased period that is definitely convenient for our economy. Thank you for that. So over to you, Mr. Oruche. I have a question here, which is on the rules of origin, which we've heard so much about this morning, and that how do we ensure that countries adhere to the rules of origin? I know this is a case whereby people don't take off or show off a product has been made in a country in Africa, whereas it was probably made elsewhere, maybe from China, and it's being repackaged as coming from the African domain, and which is against the rules. So maybe you can share some thoughts with us on that, Mr. Oruche.
Yeah, thank you. You recall that during my presentation, I emphasized on the effective monitoring mechanism, so that we can monitor what goes on in other countries on this AFTA. Yes, there is a possibility of someone doing the shipment from Asia to Africa, any small African countries, and repackage, for Nigeria, for Africa market. But if we have effective monitoring mechanism, we'll be able to meet that at the board. We'll be able to dictate such plans, and then either opt out of the AFTA or look for remedy. That's part of what I shared with us. The rule of origin although it's still under negotiation, it has not been concluded. We are talking about stiffer rule of origin. And then if you have a stiffer rule of origin, but without monitoring mechanism, some countries will abuse it, just like it's being done in ETLS. Some countries are abusing ETLS rule of origin. And that we should not allow to happen in AFTA. So that's why we are proposing for effective monitoring mechanism.
Okay, our time is fast gone. I'll be taking 2 more questions before we wrap up on this session. And I'll give the first question to Mr. Oyedele and Mr. Richie, the next one. So Mr. Oyedele, there's a question in the Q&A box about Nigerian government should consider opening her doors for manufacturers to produce in Nigeria under these conditions: no tax, no excise duties, and must employ 100% Nigerian labor. Can we achieve this? And maybe share your thoughts around it. No tax.
I know that it's difficult to pay tax anywhere in the world. It's more difficult in a country where you don't get so much for the taxes you pay. So I do understand where this question is coming from. But maybe I won't be as optimistic in my own view to say that you shouldn't pay any tax at all. That's like turning Nigeria to a free zone economy. Some countries can do it, so Dubai is doing it well, but they're making their money from other sources. So we can't do that now, to be honest. But I think what we can do is to say now that Africa is going to be one market. Can we get the guys who are importing stuff into Africa from China to come and create the manufacturing in Nigeria, not only to serve the market, which is the biggest in Africa, but to serve the rest of Africa from here? Now, because we have infrastructural challenges, it will not be very attractive. So this is where incentives can come in. And those incentives have to be time bound. They need to have sunset clauses. You don't make it forever. So if you come in to manufacture something in Nigeria and your cost is 10% higher than if you had done it in Ghana, I can give you a waiver of 30% tax for 10 years while I build the infrastructure. But while doing that, like I said before, there are those we can do now with limited impact on infrastructure. Services need very little electricity, right? Because you just need human beings to be here. Research requires less of electricity and transportation and roads. So those areas where we can easily attract global presence to Africa, to service the rest of Africa from Nigeria, we should not lose sight of them while also thinking about manufacturing. So all of this can be done together, and I think overall, Nigeria will be better off for it.
Okay, sorry, I was still muted. So thank you very much, Mr. Oyedele, for those insights. No tax will not work. We can't afford that at this moment. But we can obviously attract products that are produced elsewhere, like in China, to set up shop in Africa, in Nigeria, for the benefit of the whole of Africa. So I'm sure our policy leaders are listening, and those are some of the initiatives that are very key. And I'm sure at the end of this economic outlook, we'll package together all the thoughts and insights that have come in, and we'll also share with government officials. So thank you very much for that. So the last question I'll give to you, Mr. Oruche, and it is about setting up a fund similar to SMEs that was set up by CBN, and that this time to focus on incubating and investing in products and services that give us comparative and competitive advantage, so as to enable our own industries here, get up and go and take advantage of those areas that is competitive. So given your role, man, and everything, what do you think about such funds being set up? The questionnaire, the person that asked the question said like a venture capital or PE fund, but giving the example of CBN, I see it more like an intervention fund from the government. So maybe having some thoughts from you, Mr. Oruche, will be very useful as we wrap up.
Yeah, as part of what we have been clamoring for, we have been clamoring for a fund for research and development, so that people can tap into it to be able to develop products, taking advantage of our competitive and comparative advantage the products we have advantage over. So that fund is necessary and is needful, and it has to be at a very single interest rate, probably not more than 5%. So it will be an encouragement for investors to take advantage of it, to be able to set up something that will be of help. If you build a research and development platform where people can then take a look at issues, what have been researched, and then invest on it, create more businesses for it, Nigeria will also be developed. I quite agree with the suggestion that there is need for us to have that kind of funding. But the funding that CBN has set up, intervention funds here and there, how many businesses were able to take advantage of it? How many benefited? If we set up such funding, we must ensure that corruption will not enter into it, that people that doesn't need it will have it, while people that need it will not be able to access it. So that's what the clause I'll put, caveat I'll put there, that it has to be managed by private sector entity and not left for government to manage. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for that, Mr. Oruche. So a fund idea is good, but the rate must be affordable at 5%, you said, and it should be managed by the private sector, not left to government. So we want efficiency and effectiveness. So on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to our speakers, Mr. Oruche and Mr. Oyedele, taking out time from your busy schedule to be with us on this sunny afternoon on a Saturday. So we greatly appreciate you. And to our participants, don't go away. We'll be going next to our next session, which is now a similar deep dive, but this time it's going to be on the financial services industry. So please stay tuned. Don't go away as we cross over to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nike.